new threat has surfaced in the South African business landscape, one that lures unsuspecting victims into a money trap that has crippled many businesses and leaves aspiring entrepreneurs emotionally and financially bankrupt. White-collar crime has always been considered less of a problem than its violent counterparts, yet currently South Africa loses millions in business revenue to fraud committed by ruthless syndicates.
In total, it was 1,032,459.51. Yeah.
How do I then explain to have lost such a lot of money? I mean, a guy sits for years for him to can make up such amount of money.
This week, Special Assignment investigates the tender sharks who continue to prey on service providers to government departments throughout the country. The net that the tender scam syndicates cast in South Africa is very wide. In fact, it stretches all the way from KwaZulu-Natal to Gauteng to right here in the Western Cape. Hundreds of unsuspecting service providers to various government departments have been defrauded of millions of rands. Although there are currently many of these syndicates that are active in the country, they all have the same modus operandi. The syndicate lures you under the premise of a fake request for quotation for a service to government relevant to your company. They then direct you to a sole service provider who requests a 50% cash deposit from you. What you do not know is that the sole service provider is part of the syndicate. Khayelitsha in Cape Town is a very large informal settlement that has a high unemployment rate. People here are often left to find their own means of survival, and one of them is Mzikisi Michael, who stays in the smaller informal settlement of Humfuleni adjacent to Khayelitsha. He owns a small gaming business which manufactures pool tables and jukeboxes. Due to lack of finance, he has to move his pool tables on a makeshift cart to the taverns and pubs he services. His business was just at the point where it was starting to see some revenue when he got a call from someone who claimed that they were from the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Public Works.
So M-Games, the vision was to sustain my life. So before the scam, the business was doing fairly well and it was promising, you understand, to be in the thing, in the level that I wanted to be in, you understand. But after the call, emotionally I was bankrupt, and I was so hurt because I never thought that I would be robbed in that intellectual way. Man, they robbed me. I was robbed in an intellectual way. I never thought, because robbing to me was like someone coming to me physically. I never thought of someone robbing me like that way.
He was directed to a company called Zille Group, which was apparently the sole distributor for these discs. Under the impression that it was a legitimate company, he phoned and was quoted 162,000 Rand in order for them to deliver. He then quoted the department 219,000 Rand worth his expected profit, but he had to pay a 50% deposit.
The guy that has brought me money, what you call is Jack, he brought me 100,000, understand? That was deposited to Zille Group. It's an individual person. He took his last amount because he saw how passionate I am about business. You understand? How passionate I am about getting to the next level. You understand? Growing myself. Then he lended the money because he saw a tangible a document from Department of Agriculture, Fishery and Forestry that the money that is giving me will be paid to him within 14 days, you understand?
It was only when he invoiced the Department of Agriculture that Mzikisi realized that he was scammed. This meant he now owed Casitra, an organization that lends money to entrepreneurs, 100,000 Rand as well as his friend. He cannot contain his emotions as the reality of his current financial dilemma sinks in.
He has seen how Because I'm the kind of person that is like determined to get this business to the next level. I don't have a car, understand? I use public transport to deliver my services. I had established a relationship with Casitra, you understand? Because they would lend me money when I need to do a job for City of Cape Town, you understand? So it was difficult for me to go to Casitra and tell them that this is how it has happened. You understand? I lost money, I don't have money to pay you guys. But I've got this little thing that I'm trying to push, you understand? But I can't pay you because 100,000. I've never seen that money with my naked eye. I've never had that kind of money in my bank account and say, this is my money, you understand? But if I had that kind of money, I would like pay you immediately and say no, because it happened to me. But I don't have 100,000. I don't know where will I get 200,000, you understand?
Once he was informed that it was a scam, he desperately went to look for Zille Group. We journey with him on his path to Bellville, where the business address of this company is reported to be. When we get to this office park, we are informed by the security guard that there is no such company at those premises and that we are not the first to come looking for Zille Group. He then tried to approach the Provincial Department of Agriculture, but they told him they could not help him or reimburse him for his losses. In desperation, Mzikisi reported the matter to the local police station, but to date, the police say no progress has been made with regards to his investigation. Despite this setback, Mzikisi's employees like Sishle, who have worked with him for more than 3 years, have stuck with him throughout this ordeal.
It was devastating. It was because we had engaged in that for sponsorship, you understand, and also for a contract in which we would be the supplier to the city of Cape Town for the come and play events and any recreational events in the locations. Do you understand? So that impacted us in the manner in which production had slowed down. You understand? And because we were a slack in production, there was a lack of income as well. So for the next 6 months, we were at a very slow pace, But there's been progress and things are looking up again.
Despite what happened, his business partner Ntombi, who recently joined the company, believes that even though this was a tough business lesson, their company will persevere.
I met this guy, MC, that is the director of Mamdani Trading, and I was like, wow, okay. And I was so amazed with what he is doing, and I was like, he gave me a drive. I think I remember he had a saying that is saying, in this business as a young entrepreneur, it's 90% gut, it's 10% capital. So that's what motivated me, and I'm like, okay, I want to do this. And I didn't even dwell much on it. I even forgot about it. So I was like, okay, those things happen because we're human after all. Sometimes we engage in things we thought they are good or something, or whatever it happens, it overwhelms us. So I didn't judge him. I just like, oh, okay, no, it happens. It can happen to me as well. It happened to everybody. So I wasn't fazed about that.
The sad reality for business owners like Mzikisi is that the relevant government departments who the scammers have been fronting as will not and cannot take accountability for what has happened to them. It is not only small businesses that are being targeted by the syndicates. In Durban, we met Sicelo Mzamande, the CEO of a medium-sized enterprise that recently had an encounter with a tender scam syndicate. He says he was called by a woman called Lesedi Mutanyane, who claimed to be from the Department of Energy.
She gave me the batch number for the product that I would be looking for, and I phoned around Durban, the suppliers that I normally contact when I'm buying certain items. And when I did that, the batch number they gave me couldn't correspond with the batch number of other suppliers. So they had a different batch number. Then I went back to them. I said, no, I cannot supply you guys with this because my suppliers don't have what matches to you. It could be the same thing, but the batch number is different.
Then she recommended Arcade Drills to me. She said they work with Arcade Drills. Arcade Drills do have this kind of product. Then I've searched for Arcade Drills. I went to the website. I found it there. And I called the so-called Arcade Drills. When I called them, the lady by the name of Melissa answered the phone. And she said to me, they can help me with that. They do have a lot of drills. And they are based in Cape Town.
After receiving the quotation from Arcade Drills, he added his markup and quoted on the request for quotation.
When I sent the quotation after getting the price from Arcade Drills, I sent back the quotation to the department together with the request for quotation. And then my quotation was approved. They gave me the order number and the letter confirming that I've been awarded. I was so happy. And I thought, oh wow, some more money coming my way. As for any business person, when you open the business doors, you're expecting the business to come your way. Little did I know that this was a scam.
Once he was awarded the first order, they proceeded to give him the impression that he had been successful in 3 additional orders.
My total loss as I was trying to make a business with these people, thinking that I'm doing the business with the Department of Energy, since I'm registered with their database, it was 1,032,459 rand 51 cents. And it happened in 4 different orders. The first order was at 146,000 with some change. The second order was at 276,000 because the quantity was a little bit more. It was 120 units. And the third one was with discount of 15% at 120 units was 270,000 with some change. And the last one at 150 units with 10% discount, it was at 333,000 with some change. So in total, it was 1,032,459 rand 51 cents. Yeah, it was very difficult to find out that I've lost so much money in a space of like 2 weeks. I couldn't believe it. I would like the department to do something about this, especially in getting my money back, because how are they letting my information leak to their former employees and the outsiders just like that? Because if I was never registered with them, I wasn't going to fall into this situation. I wouldn't have quoted, because I will never quote for people that I don't even know.
Sicelo used his savings to finance the deal, money that he and his family had been saving to renovate a property they had recently acquired in Durban North.
I already purchased a property, but it was not in a good condition. So I was going to renovate and extend it to be a suitable home for my children here in Durban North suburb area. But that never happened, because this R1 million has gone down to drain just like that.
He's determined to see the syndicate exposed. According to Sicelo, the kingpin is a former government employee who was fired from the Department of Energy several years ago for alleged corruption. The department has not responded to any of our requests for interviews to verify this information. We followed several leads to find the call center from which they allegedly operate, which is running from an apartment in Sunnyside. We were led to a street where the Sunnyside police station is situated, but the call center was nowhere to be found. We then went to an address that was linked to the suspect in Pretoria's township of Mamelodi. We also went to another address in Soweto, but this house was unoccupied on the many occasions that special assignment was there. Meanwhile, Mzikisi remains vulnerable to these ruthless syndicates. He is still being pursued by scammers, this time pretending to be Transnet. To illustrate how they manipulate the process so that the victims end up using their preferred service provider, we called the call center and pretended to be associates of his company.
Okay, ma'am, good day.
Yebo, can I please speak to Mr. Temba Zungu?
Speaking.
We wanted to know which company do you usually work with, because The drill bit you're looking for, we found it registered with 2 different companies.
Normally, if you Google it through like Flexicon, if you Google Flexicon drill bit RT55.
Yebo.
I assisted one gentleman. He found a company. He said it's in Cape Town. Is it Cape Town or Port Melbourne, if I'm not mistaken?
Okay. Do you...
Cape Town or Port Melbourne.
And the name of the company?
It's Gear Tool.
Gear Tool Suppliers.
We were directed to a company called Gear Tools that is non-existent, just like many others that they refer their clients to. It is not only companies that are on the database of government departments that fall prey to this scam. Companies dealing with parastatals are also at risk.
Okay, I received an order, a request, an RFQ from Tulani Kamini, who claims to be working for ESCOM. Okay, they requested me to supply them with a price for cutting disc, 400 of them. I then Googled, then only found that Enigma are the main supplier of those discs. Right. I contacted Enigma, speak to the lady called Sharon Smith. Right. They then gave me a price, which I then made my markup and sent email back my quotation to this Tulani guy. Right. Tulani, they then responded, gave me an RFQ to fill in, which I did and submitted everything. They were happy with my price, right? Then they then approved my order. With my original order number, a genuine order number, which I've got with ESCOM. Right? The vendor number with ESCOM, that's a right one. And then I then supplied that, and then they told me I must pay in the money, which of course I paid at 266,988.
How has this affected your business?
You can imagine 300,000. Where am I going to get that? I mean, where am I going to get that? I mean, how do I then explain to have lost such a lot of money? I mean, a guy sits for years for him to can make up such amount of money in pension, nohal. But for somebody to be, but I still maintain, whoever did this, it's within ESCOM. There is a link. There's people that's or the way they operate. Because under normal circumstances, nobody can get my order number unless he's got a contact in ESCOM.
John has once again received a call, this time reportedly from the Department of Social Development. This confirms a pattern that these syndicates are so ruthless that they are not content with defrauding their victims once, but several times. White-collar crime is not unique to South Africa and has become a global phenomenon. Since 2010, tender scam syndicates have been targeting the small, medium enterprise sector and defrauded companies of millions of rands. We spoke to the Hawks about what is being done to counter the spread.
We started getting these complaints from January, February of 2014, where we started to see a lot of complaints coming through from different quarters, and I mean regarding these tender scams. And subsequent to that, there was a task team that was formulated to look precisely on these issues, and they have now started. They have been on the ground for some time, and we are happy that there is something that is coming out of it, because we can confirm that there have been arrests that have been made. There were many of these syndicates that were working more especially around the Gauteng area that have been taken down, and most of these suspects, they are still in custody as we speak.
The Hawks believe that they are winning the war against these syndicates despite the fact that there are still 140 dockets open regarding these tender scams. only one syndicate has been arrested to date and the number of victims are increasing. Parastatals like Eskom say that they are aware of the growing number of scams currently using their name.
Well, every tender that we issue always has the name and the telephone number of the person to be contacted. So in other words, if you are in doubt, always phone the number that has been provided for the tender that you have applied for, so that you can verify the information that whoever else may be wanting from you. If it's coming from our side, then obviously those people will be able to give you proper details. If it is not, then obviously that's how you can be able to identify that this is a scam.
But how do these criminals manage to get hold of not only the customer details but also their vendor number and other business information? Could they be having inside help?
If we do have indications that maybe some of our own employees are helping some of the syndicates, then that matter will obviously be addressed internally to make sure that we address it.
One cannot rule out the fact that there might be people working with these syndicates. There's no way. And that is where we are moving now. Because how can you be able to get all the database, of all the companies, the parastatals that are there in the country? It can never happen. Even if you have to Google, you can't get all of these things. So there is a huge possibility that we have people within our procurement system that are working with these syndicates. We have people from our telecommunications company that are working with these people, because you will find that in most of the cases you get a telephone call that has got an 021 number, but these people are based in Johannesburg.
One of the departments that is most affected by the scams is the Department of Public Works, who have put in place certain countermeasures to curb the problem.
There is one case that we have where they cloned an ID of what is purported to be my ID. If I can show you the example there as evidence, and using a fictitious order that looks like an order issued by Public Works, went to somebody to finance them. But those people were smart, because they then conducted Public Works to verify this thing. And that's when this whole thing came untangled.
As many victims continue to lose money, it is believed that the syndicates are exploiting certain key loopholes in the system.
Firstly, they make use of people who do not understand the processes in government. They exploit them. Because in our case, the trend has been that about 90% of it has been people who are not on our supplier database. So obviously, these are people who may not be familiar with what is happening in our environment. And secondly, they also exploit the requirements by government that you deliver before you get paid. Because if you see this, well, you'll realize that government hasn't lost its people who were purporting to be delivering to government.
The relationship between government departments and service providers, how has this been affected?
Definitely it does, because you are sitting with people who are very unhappy. I mean, when you've lost money, you cannot treat anyone around that transaction as your friend. However, if you are fair, you would realize that, unfortunately, you have fallen a victim.
We decided to visit the South African Chamber of Commerce to get an idea of how these white-collar criminals are impacting our economy.
It's quite important for entrepreneurs, business people, to make sure that they go through a thorough verification process before they respond to any form of a tender, before they get into any form of engagement. Because without that, they become prey to some of these scammers.
Cybercrime is the worst thing that we could ever imagine for in this country. I'm speaking here specifically for the small, medium enterprises. Guys who use their hard-earned savings to start up a business with an intention of earning an honest living, making a contribution to the fiscus of this country, and also adding to the economic activity. Once they get hit, from a SABC perspective also, we have instances where small, medium enterprises have lost everything that they've saved for to run a business, only to be siphoned and robbed by scammers who take everything they worked for the rest of their lives. It's sad to indicate that some of them have never been able to recover. So it's a big challenge, it's a big threat, it's something that they really have to be addressed collectively without it being only a business issue or government issue. It's got to be a collective issue as South Africans.
In a country with an ailing economy where entrepreneurship seems to be a key solution to growing the economy and employment levels, it is clear that these tender shocks will continue to prowl on unsuspecting businesses if not made a priority by government and the police.